So, there's no money left in this house, right? We don't need to deal with them anymore, do we?
That's true. I guess we don't need our parents anymore.
What?
I mean, cutting ties with you, you know. Humoring a broke old lady doesn't benefit us at all.
Right? She's been trying to mooch off us, and even without a penny to her name, she expects us to take care of her. Better to cut ties now.
I understand your point. So you're saying your inheritance will be just $30,000, and that's the severance for ending the parent-child relationship, right?
Yay, that's fine.
After George passed away, Michael and Daisy showed their true colors. They confronted me with a declaration of disownment, as if to take revenge for their failed plans. $30,000 is a lot of money, but they will regret accepting that money. 2 years after George's death, I was sitting on a park bench, eating my sandwich. The peaceful moment vanished with a familiar voice.
Isn't that Mom over there?
What?
Really? Look, she looks so tired, feeding pigeons in the park.
No, I'm not feeding the pigeons.
That's true. We took all the money after all, so of course you'd be homeless, huh? How's the homeless life treating you?
My anger had long passed, leaving me speechless and aghast. I sighed softly and resumed my lunch.
Mom, why are you ignoring me? Oh right, we've cut ties, so I shouldn't call you Mom anymore.
How about homeless hag then?
That's a good one, homeless hag, haha.
Michael and Daisy kept mocking me, taking advantage of my silence. After finishing my sandwich, it was time to reveal the truth to them. You've been going on about homeless this, homeless that, but who are you talking about?
We're talking about you, homeless hag.
I'm not homeless, dear. I live over there.
What?
I pointed to a building and explained the truth to Michael and Daisy.
What?
Shocked by the truth, it was too late for them to regret. I am Emily. I'm a 60-year-old housewife. My husband, George, is 67 and still working. George quit his job about 20 years ago to start an IT company. The company has grown successfully, especially in the last 10 years, as he ventured into new fields, leading to rapid growth. Now it's a significant enterprise. I don't quite understand all this data science and big data stuff that George talks about. Given his age, George has already retired as CEO, but he continues to work as the chairman. However, he seems to think it's about time to step down completely. We have one son, Michael. When George retired as CEO, Michael didn't take over the company. He isn't helping with George's company at all, quite the contrary.
I don't want to be seen as living off my father, so I'll do my best on my own.
After graduating from college, Michael joined a company unrelated to IT and moved out. I was a bit disappointed when Michael didn't take over George's company because I had hoped he would. But as a proud parent, I felt a bit proud when I saw him choose not to rely on his powerful parents, and I couldn't help but smile when I heard his decision.
I won't force you, so do what you want.
George seemed to share my sentiments, offering a supportive nudge to Michael, despite looking a bit disappointed. Everything was fine until Michael got a job. After that, he rarely contacted us, only coming home about once a year. Lately, he just calls and doesn't visit at all. Well, I suppose that's not unusual for men. And as long as he's doing fine, that's what matters. Still, I can't help but wish he would reach out more. Then one day, Michael called. It's rare for you to call.
I have something to report. I'll be coming home soon.
What's the report?
I'm getting married, so I want to introduce her to you.
Really? That's wonderful. I was already happy to hear from Michael, but I was ecstatic to hear about his marriage, and I couldn't help but exclaim loudly. My sudden outburst made George, who was leisurely watching TV, jump and turn towards me. I returned his glance with a beaming smile. He looked puzzled, unaware of Michael's marriage news. Michael would bring his fiancée home in a month. Michael will be bringing his bride-to-be home soon.
That's still 3 weeks away.
3 weeks will fly by. Since Michael's call, I've been reminding George almost daily that Michael will be home soon with his bride-to-be. George might be tired of hearing it, but I can't help repeating it. I just can't help being so excited about it. But this marriage announcement would soon bring me a sense of unease. A month later, Michael and his fiancée arrived.
We're home.
Welcome. Come in. George is waiting in the living room.
Thank you.
His fiancée, Daisy, looked young and cute like an idol, instead of having the sleek beauty of a model. Her nervousness, glancing around at the entrance, was endearing. As I led them to the living room where George was waiting, she kept looking around.
Welcome. Have a seat.
In the living room, George seated Michael and Daisy opposite of him. I sat next to him. Daisy continued to look around curiously. Feeling a bit embarrassed by her scrutinizing gaze, I asked her, "Is there something you're curious about?"
Oh, number, it's just. This is so different from what I imagined.
What?
I had heard that George runs a large company.
Hey, don't say embarrassing things like that out of the blue.
Daisy's comment and Michael's flustered attempt to cover her made George and me exchange glances and burst into laughter.
Was the house more ordinary than you expected?
No, it's not that.
Don't worry about it. We're not really into material things. So even though George runs a big company, our house is just average size. And we don't deck ourselves out in designer brands or have fancy meals every day.
I see. I'm sorry for the odd comment out of the blue.
I told you, there's no need to be nervous, right? You see, Dad isn't a very imposing person.
It seems Michael laughed along too. And with Michael's laughter, it appeared that Daisy's nerves had eased, and the conversation flowed smoothly after that. Daisy looks young but is actually 27, and talking to her, you can tell she's really mature. I had been worried about Michael not marrying even after turning 30, but now that he's going to be happily married, I feel relieved. 3 months later, Michael got married. It's joyous in itself, but Michael's marriage brought an unexpected bonus.
Hello, Mom. Everything okay over there?
Yes, everything's fine.
You and Dad are getting up there in age, so please take care of yourselves.
It seems like that's all you talk about every time you call. Since getting married, Michael has started calling once a month. Daisy probably found out he hadn't been calling at all before and suggested he should call regularly. Michael, not used to calling us, seems unsure what to talk about, always asking about our health instead of discussing his work or marital life. While I wish he'd share more, I always listen with a smile, enjoying his concern. One day, a while after Michael got married, he and Daisy visited us at home. I prepared some homemade appetizers to welcome them with enthusiasm. However, Daisy seemed a bit displeased. "Daisy, is there something you can't eat?"
No, it's not that. Thank you, I'll eat.
Daisy responded with a smile, but I didn't miss the brief shadow that crossed her face when she saw the appetizers. And she hardly touched them. Maybe there was something she couldn't eat after all. I felt anxious, constantly checking Daisy's expressions, worrying I had made her uncomfortable. I became so fixated on her reaction that I spoke less, even as everyone else seemed to be enjoying the conversation. Eventually, it was time to see Michael and Daisy off. While George and Daisy talked at the door, Michael whispered to me, out of their earshot,
Mom, homemade appetizers aren't really a thing anymore.
"That's not true, is it? There's nothing old or new about homemade appetizers, right?"
That mindset is outdated, Mom. The appetizers you made prioritize shelf life over appeal, right? Nowadays, it's all about using fancy ingredients for appetizers. Daisy must have been disappointed.
Really? I guess I'm out of touch with what young people like these days. I'm sorry. While I believe there's nothing wrong with making appetizers, I was too concerned about Daisy's impression and ended up apologizing to Michael in a low voice. After the small appetizer incident, our monthly calls became less frequent, dropping to once every 2 or 3 months. I felt down, thinking I had upset Daisy with the appetizers. Seeing me like this, George comforted me gently.
Daisy wouldn't get upset over appetizers. Maybe work is just busier, or continuing the monthly calls was too much. Going from no contact to once a month is a big jump, isn't it? Even if it's every 3 months, it's good that he calls at all.
His words lifted my spirits a bit. However, even then, I couldn't say it was a complete recovery, and negative feelings remained in a corner of my heart. And it seemed that the negative emotions lingering in my heart had the power to attract bad things. 6 months later, George fell ill.
This is it. I can't work anymore. Guess it's the right time to retire.
In the hospital bed, George seemed relieved about not having to work anymore. But having been married for 30 years, I understand. He must be thinking he was frustrated about being forced into retirement by illness. He smiled to avoid worrying me, and that consideration pierced my heart. Of course, I had told Michael about his illness.
What? Dead ill? I'll come to visit soon.
Michael's response over the phone seemed indifferent. George's condition worsened after he collapsed. Still, Michael and Daisy never visited him in the hospital. Gradually, the once every 3-month calls ceased, and they never returned home after he fell ill. Time passed, and 3 years later, George passed away.
So, did finally kick the bucket. Well, he was over 70 and had made his company successful, so he probably lived a content life, right?
Even when I told Michael over the phone about George's passing, his reaction was indifferent. They showed up at the funeral but didn't help out, and as soon as the service was over, Michael and Daisy quickly left. Remembering them laughing as they got into their car, my sadness at George's absence turned into anger. However, this anger was fleeting, and soon I was overwhelmed with sadness again. There was so much to do, like paperwork and clearing up, but I couldn't get anything to progress as I wanted. About a month after George passed, I finally started to feel a bit better. It seems time does heal most wounds. But just as I was regaining my spirits, a new problem emerged. One morning, while doing laundry, the doorbell rang.
Mom, open up.
Looking at the intercom monitor, I saw Michael and Daisy standing there. Confused by their sudden visit, I headed to the front door.
Dad's office was this way.
Hold on.
As I opened the door, without any greetings, Michael and Daisy hurriedly entered and made a beeline for George's office. Left at the entrance in a momentary lapse, I hurried after them.
Where is it?
It's probably in one of these drawers, I guess.
The door to George's office was left open, and I could hear they were rummaging through the drawers. "What are you two doing?" They stopped opening drawers and turned to look at me. I had a hunch, but I was praying it wasn't true.
It's about time to talk about the inheritance, right? So, we came to collect what's ours.
He was the CEO and chairman of a big company, and it seems like he didn't spend much, so there must be plenty of money.
Sadly, my prayers went unanswered. Michael and Daisy threw a few words at me and resumed rifling through the drawers. Seeing them act like thieves, I lost the will to stop them.
Found it. Is this it?
Oh, is it there? What's inside? Haha.
Excitedly, they flipped through George's bank book. But their expressions darkened as they saw the balance.
What's this? There's hardly any money in here.
Damn. So, there wasn't much money after all.
It was clear they had come looking for George's money. But I couldn't grasp what they were talking about, and my thoughts froze, leaving me standing there, dumbfounded.
Mom, you have been living a comfortable life, but what a way to end it, ho.
Michael's voice snapped me back to reality. As my consciousness cleared, I saw them smirking at me. Still not understanding the situation, I was ready to be ridiculed as I asked Michael, "What do you mean by a terrible end?"
No need to play dumb, we know.
George's company was taken over when he got sick, right?
That means it was in the red and got absorbed by another company, right?
What? What are you talking about?
A guy holding a company that's almost bankrupt surely doesn't have any money. Still, we thought that being at the top of a big company, even if it was going downhill, there would be some money left. My plan is ruined.
Yeah, what a disappointment.
Wait, what are you talking about? Despite listening to them, I couldn't understand a thing, and frustrated, I raised my voice. But they, still with their villainous grins, were unfazed by my outburst.
I didn't join Dad's company because it seemed like a tough job with all that complex stuff. Why sweat it out at Dad's company when I could just wait and inherit his fortune, right? Exactly. It's smarter to just coast through an easy job, huh? Aw man, yet things didn't go as planned.
I tried to stay on your good side at first, being all nice and making Michael call you. Even endured those awful homemade appetizers.
You stopped all that once it was clear Dad wasn't a tough guy, right?
And you just accepted it as downgrading from a sure-win life to a normal one when you heard Dad sold the company.
I'd give up, but you'd expect at least $100,000 in savings, right? Look at this bank book, only $30,000. I wonder if closing a company costs a lot.
Well, we should be grateful for these $30,000 and just take it.
Listening to Michael and Daisy blabbering selfishly, my anger was on the verge of exploding. But I clenched my teeth and pushed down the words rising in my throat.
What's wrong? Your face is all red. So, there's no money left in this house, right? No need to bother with you anymore, right?
That's true. We don't need a parent who spoiled my plan.
What?
We're cutting ties with you. No point in sucking up to a broke mill, right?
We don't want to be hassled for money or care when you don't have a penny to your name. Better to cut ties now.
I get your point. So your inheritance is just that $30,000. And that's our severance for cutting ties, right? I can keep the rest, right?
Yay, that's fine. We don't need this house and we don't want to be saddled with any debt. We're good with just the $30,000.
Michael and Daisy left laughing, just like at the funeral. I didn't want to give them even $30,000. $30,000 is a lot of money. But later, they will regret receiving that $30,000. 2 years after George passed away, I was roaming around town on an errand. Moving around is tough when you're past your mid-60s. Exhausted, I decided to rest on a park bench. With a heave, I sat down and took out a sandwich I bought from the supermarket for a quick lunch. As I ate, pigeons gathered around. Watching the pigeons, I felt at peace. Indeed, they are a symbol of peace. But that tranquil moment was shattered by a familiar voice.
Isn't that Mom over there?
What?
It's true. Look, she's got that tired look, feeding pigeons in the park.
No, I'm not feeding the pigeons.
Huh, that's right. Still not spending on appearances, huh? Oh, I guess you have no money left to spend. We took all the money, so naturally, you'd be homeless, right? How's homeless life treating you?
Michael and Daisy never really listened to me. My anger has long passed, and now I'm just speechless and dumbfounded. I sighed quietly and resumed my lunch.
Mom, why are you ignoring me? Oh, right, we cut ties, so I shouldn't call you Mom anymore.
How about homeless hag then?
That's a good one, homeless hag.
They continued to mock me, laughing at their own cruel jokes. After finishing my sandwich, it was time to reveal the truth to them. You've been going on about homeless this, homeless that, but who are you talking about?
We're talking about you, homeless hag.
I'm not homeless, dear. I live over there.
What?
I pointed to a building. They slowly turned their gaze in the direction I was pointing. Though it appeared small and distant, it was a fine high-rise condo. I thought luxurious condos weren't my thing at first, but living there proved to be convenient. That condo has barrier-free units for the elderly, and I live in one. Plus, with care staff on site 24/7, I feel safe knowing help is always available.
What? Stop bluffing. There's no way a homeless hag like you could afford to live there.
Well, yes, that's the condo George left for me.
What do you mean?
He actually owned 5 condos. I moved into one, and I'm the owner of the others, so I have rental income. That's why I'm not struggling for living expenses.
Ha ha ha. If you're going to lie, at least make it a believable one.
It's true. I'll show you proof, but only a little since I don't usually show off. I pulled out documents related to the ownership and rental agreements of the condos from my bag, and they were so shocked their jaws could have dropped. My errand today was related to these condos, so I happened to have the documents with me. They seemed skeptical, but after seeing these documents, they finally understood I was telling the truth.
Where did Dad get that kind of money?
You two thought Dad's company was sold at a loss, but it was actually a proper sale. He bought these condos as an investment with the money from selling the company. That's why there was only $30,000 in savings. I think he wanted to leave an inheritance in a form other than cash. Maybe he still wanted to do something business-like after suddenly retiring due to his illness. Realizing the truth about the condos but only receiving $30,000, they were in a daze. However, claiming to own 5 buildings might seem like a stretch, as Michael suggested. Building one condo costs millions. For 5, it would be hundreds of millions. It's unlikely to have that much money just from selling a company, and even big corporations can't easily build 5 condos. Actually, I own units in different buildings, not entire buildings. When I said 5 buildings, I meant that I own units in 5 different buildings, totaling 6 units. It was easier to say it that way. They seem to have misunderstood that I own entire condo buildings, but I can't be bothered to correct them, so I'll let it be. Moreover, it ended up sounding like I owned 5 whole buildings when I actually have units in 5 buildings, but owning 6 units is still significant. Each condo unit he bought costs over $500,000. So with 6 units, that's over $3 million. He invested most of the money from selling his company into these condos. He must have had a lot of fun making one last big purchase with the money he worked his whole life to earn.
Now that you have so many, shouldn't you share one with us?
Yeah, managing all that must be tough for you alone. We can help.
When they learned I was an owner of multiple condo units, they became cautious in their words, their speech awkward. Their attitudes flipped entirely. Of course, I can't trust such people. No need for concern from someone I've cut ties with.
What?
Wait, even if we've cut ties, we're still family. That means when you're gone, the condos automatically come to me, right?
Yeah, right. No need to apologize to this old lady here.
They began to smirk again like villains. but I have no intention of handing over George's precious legacy to such unkind people. Unfortunately, you won't be getting anything.
Planning to write in your will not to pass on anything to me? That's useless. I know my rights as a child can't be easily nullified.
Yes, that's why I plan to dispose of the assets eventually.
What?
I intend to transfer the condos to George's acquaintances.
What?
I live in one of the 6 condo units, but the rest are inhabited by George's friends. They are all married and running their own businesses, so I don't expect them to move until I pass on. Thus, I don't worry about vacancies. The people living in my condo units have supported me and were helped by George during his lifetime, so when my time comes to join him, I plan to transfer the condos to them. I think it's much better than leaving them to Michael and Daisy. Also, I'm thinking of donating the money gradually accumulating from the condo rents to his cherished company. It won't be a large amount, but since I've already given Michael and Daisy $30,000, I don't want to give them a penny more. Well, when my time comes, I'll make sure to leave absolutely nothing behind.
What?
Michael collapsed to the ground, drained of strength upon realizing I had no intention of leaving anything behind. $30,000 is a lot of money, but it's not an unattainable amount for Michael to earn. Of course, he would regret throwing away the chance for the condos for just $30,000. It's not pleasant to talk about life after you're gone while you're still alive. But this time, I took pleasure in seeing their frantic faces. Well, I've got other things to do, so I'll be going now. Goodbye, estranged strangers. After my break, I left a park with a light step. Michael was so regretful about missing out on the condos that he ended up buying a small apartment building. But driven by his frustration and lack of knowledge, he struggled with increasing occupancy, and the building seems to be plagued with vacancies. Consequently, he's been dealing with ongoing financial losses. After sinking his savings into the apartment and taking out loans, he can't sustain this forever and will eventually need to sell. If that happens, he might be left with a massive debt. And if he struggles to find a buyer, the situation could become even more dire. If no buyer is found, he might have to demolish the building and sell just the land, which would be a terrifying thought with demolition costs added to the debt. I live comfortably in a senior-friendly condo. The residents of my condo, who were helped by George, also look after me. While living alone as an elderly person can be lonely, that's not the case for me. The weather looks nice today, so I might go for another walk in the park.